Hi, this is Rachel over at Moonlight Library. I'm here today to talk to you about reading stats and such like that. My 2020 reading stats, I don't know if this is late. It seems practical to me to do it in 2021 after I actually finish reading everything. Because I did finish a book on New Year's Eve. So, So here we go. Reading stats. I wrote them in my little notebook. So I read 73 books last year. That's weird to say, 2020 last year. I read 20,612 pages. That's pretty good. I read a good amount of graphic novels and stuff, so yeah, kind of shorter. My average page number length was 282 pages, so that's short to average, or maybe average is like around 300 anyways. Next up, I read, out of my books, the number of pages, I grouped them by under 250, I read 36 books. Between 250 and 400, I've read 30 books. And over 400, I read 7 books. That's not many big books. Primarily short books. Got the little books. I listened to 20 audiobooks, and I read physically 53 books. That could be ebook too, but I probably only read like one ebook. So this one is where I got the book, which I guess it's okay because I primarily borrowed books. Like all the audiobooks I got were through Libby or Hoopla, through the library, which makes them free. Oh, wait a second, I did get that subscription to Script, but I only listened to like probably 5 things on there. I mean, that's actually a pretty good amount of things, but whatever. So I borrowed 52 books from either other people or through the library and their apps and such. I bought 16 books. That's pretty regular for me though, because I have book club once a month and I like to own the books. So a good amount of the books that I read, that I bought, were for book club. Other than that, I owned, prior to the beginning of this year, or of 2020, I owned 5 of the books I read, which is really bad. And it's like, I have so many books. So you're looking at a whole bookshelf. This is not even the usual bookshelf I sit in front of. Yes, I'm going to try and read the books that I own. Now I've separated them by fiction, nonfiction, graphic novel, and other being a play, because I was like, well, I was like, maybe I have some like poetry or something, and I always feel weird putting that in. I know it's in nonfiction scripts and poetry at like, say, the library, but I don't know, they're different to me. So I only had one play, so let's disregard that. Fiction, I read 39, which is a lot. I read 6 nonfiction and 27 graphic novels / manga, because I read an okay amount of manga this year, probably like 5 or so. I didn't really separate it because I didn't see the need to. And then I decided to just let you know how many young adult books I read, because I was like, I'm not going to separate by adult / not young adult, because also I have so many graphic novels that I'm not going to count towards adult, young adult, middle grade, because they're all over the place, and a lot of people could see one as adult but the same one as young adult. And I'm like, I don't know, actual books, not graphic novels, like print books or words. I read 4 young adult books, which is like, I felt like I kept saying in so many videos, I don't read many young adult books, but I kept feeling like I was reading young adult books. And then it really did turn out that I don't read many young adult books. So now I'm gonna separate them by genre because that's fun. I put contemporary and literary fiction together, and that's 9 contemporary literary, 5 romance books, and then mystery thriller, I read 7, which is actually a lot more than usual. I think I've been getting more into mystery and thriller. I used to only listen to mystery and thriller audiobooks, but I've kind of been enjoying reading them more. Yeah. Science fiction fantasy, I only read 4. I'd like to read more. Horror, read 10. That's pretty obvious. I feel like I read a lot of horror. Classics, I read 2. And then speculative, I read 2. So that's like a regular book that has like kind of magical properties or weirdness, or like there's something that's not quite right. So for example, then I'm going to talk about authors I read 62 authors. That's pretty good. I guess I repeated a couple of these authors. I did just get into Ruth Ware. I read 3 of her books. I read Lying Game, Turn of the Key, and One by One. And then say like Riley Sager, I read 2 of his books. I read a couple of Mike Carey's because I was reading Lucifer at the beginning of the year. There were a good amount that I like just kind of started getting into. And then new to me authors, I read 47 authors that were new to me, which is over half of the books I read were new to me authors. Let's go into the publication year books. I read 10 books from 2020. That's okay. I mean, I don't usually read like a ton of books that are new releases. I'm usually more of a backlister. I read 21 from 2019. That's pretty big. That's probably my biggest number here that's from a specific year. I guess it's just easier for me to get my hands on them. Secondly, I'm reading a good amount of 2019s at the beginning of the year, or like that's what happened. Between 2010 and 2018, I read 30 books that were published in there. Between 2000 and 2009, I read 5 books published in there. That's not many. 1 book published in the 90s, 3 books published in the 80s, 2 in the 60s, and my oldest publication was 1898, Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Badu. Another stat I have for you is how many countries I read books set in. This turns out I got to the end of counting for this year and I was like, wow, I didn't read from that many countries. Then I went back to the past 2 years and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty standard for me. So I read from 11 countries. I'll list them up right here. I think that I read a lot of books set in the US. We all know that the US is like the powerhouse of publishing, especially for books in the US. So it's like the more books I come in contact with are not from other countries or usually set in other countries. I could try to read more books set in other countries. So lastly, let's talk about my ratings. I typically read things that I am pretty sure I'm gonna like. I spend a good amount of time looking up books and making sure that I'm going to be reading something that I want to enjoy and that I think I will enjoy. So I don't really end up with that many poorly rated books, along with the fact that I am very easy to please. Most people would say that it is uncommon for me to say a movie was bad or a TV show was bad. I just like things and I like to like things. And if I'm not liking a book, I will set it down. So 5 stars, I gave 21 5 stars, 26 4 stars, 22 3 stars, and then 3 2 stars and 1 1 star. That's pretty good for me. Pretty averagely spread between 5 and 3. And I try to be pretty critical about how I rate things too. I'll get into that another day, but average rating is 3.9, which is pretty high, you know. I typically like books. I typically enjoy what I read. The last thing I want to talk about is the most popular book I read on Goodreads and the least popular, or like the most read book, which was It by Stephen King. It has been read, as of right now, 823,205 times. So almost 1 million reviews on that one. So then the least read book or rated book that I read this year is Desdemona by Toni Morrison. That's the play that I read. It has 421 reviews on Goodreads. Never heard of it. It's pretty short. It was good. It's obviously a retelling of Desdemona from Othello, and Toni Morrison wrote it, which sold me on it. So the highest rated and the lowest rated books on Goodreads that I read. The highest rated on Goodreads was Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, Volume 2. It has a 4.63. I gave it a 5. It was amazing. Doesn't surprise me in the least bit that it got that. The lowest rated, though, is I Am Not Okay With This by Charles Forsman. It has a 3.22 average rating. I think I gave it a 3. It was not the best graphic novel. Longest book I read was It by Stephen King. That was 1,300 pages around. And then the shortest book I read was Gratitude by Oliver Sacks. And that, you know, I don't remember how many pages it was. It was probably like 50 or 60. Those are my stats for this year. Let me know if there are any stats that you think I should include next year, because I was just kind of like, let me just judge it by what I read, what I think is interesting when I see these, and I don't know, that's it. It's going to be fun to look back on, especially like next year after I do one, and see what the differences are, especially since I have it like written down. Thanks for joining me. I'm glad you came to my place. Please subscribe, like, comment, do it all. Follow me. Hang out with me more. Bye.